This was the night of September 3rd. Josh and I found ourselves waiting to board an overnight Aeromexico flight to Mexico City or Ciudad de Mexico in, you guessed it, Mexico. Now, believe it or not, there was actually a reason behind this sleep deprivation torture that I subjected us to. Our only other option for a nonstop flight was United Airlines, and we could have flown at a less insane time and I would have gotten my sleep, but I wouldn't have had my honor. So we flew with an airline that I wasn't actively boycotting, and I didn't sleep. Can you tell? But anyway, we landed really early in the morning, so we had a lot of time to kill at the airport, which was unfortunate because we were basically zombies, but no regrets because fuck United. We had breakfast there at the airport, and after a little while, we called an Uber. This was my first look at Mexico City, and I was so excited to see so much color, so much vibrance, and so much difference from the States, and honestly, it was exactly what I needed because I was getting really tired of being American. Already, despite not having slept, I felt more awake. We made our way to our Airbnb, and this is what it looked like. It was straight up the nicest place I've ever stayed in. Yes, unnecessarily big for two people, but also I wanted to make sure to get a luxurious place. I wanted to experience what it was like to be wealthy, even if it was just for a week, and with things being a lot cheaper in Mexico, it was easy to find a place that fit the bill. Our stay and our host were absolutely lovely. I've linked the place in the description. We stayed in a lovely area called La Condesa. Since I wanted our vacation to lean more on the luxurious side, I wanted to stay near Polanco, which I've heard is considered the Beverly Hills of Mexico. There were a lot of fancy restaurants in this area, and also the Bosque de Chapultepec, which I knew I had to see. More on that later. We wanted to go to Pequeño Sol, or basically Koreatown. Its proximity to La Condesa was another reason I wanted to stay where we did. Leave it to us to get Asian food in Mexico. Hilarious, predictable. In our research, we found that there was a big Korean population in Mexico City, so we wanted to see how the Korean food compares to that in California, which is kind of hard to beat. This was the same day that we landed, so I was a little loopy. That night, I slept for 12 hours. The next morning, I was feeling really energized and excited. After a good night's sleep, I noticed and was surprised to see that the streets were pretty barren. With Mexico City being one of the most populated cities in the world, I was half expecting it to be very crowded, almost like Disneyland or like Times Square before New Year's. I know it sounds really silly, but I was literally wondering, where are all the people? I didn't realize till later, but everyone was at work because it was Monday. It was midday Monday. It was nice though, because people make me anxious, and pretty much all week everywhere we went, it was never really crowded. Full first day in Mexico, and I'm so excited to be here now that I've gotten a full night's sleep, and we slept for like 12 hours last night.
Yes, we did. It was storming like crazy.
I know, but we missed it. We missed most of it because we were knocked out. But I think we slept for 12 hours because the night before we pulled an all-nighter, basically.
Long time. We're gonna get some gelato.
Josh and I got some gelato, where he proceeded to take this awkward picture of me, and I took this cute picture of him. The lady at the gelato shop was really patient with us as we struggled to order. Honestly, everyone we encountered was really patient. Like, nobody got mad at us that we didn't know how to speak Spanish, which I was really, really grateful for. But I will not be returning to Mexico without having learned some Spanish first. Right across from the gelato place was Parque España, and this was probably the coolest park I had ever been to. It's honestly probably a regular ass park to all the locals, but it was really cool. After chilling there for a bit, we hopped in an Uber to our next destination. Uber was how we got around all week. For the most part, getting around the city cost less than $10 per ride, which was totally worth it for me. But if you want to go to Mexico City and save a bit more money, then the metro is probably your best bet. Our first very touristy spot was the Sumaya Museum, which was super cool on the outside and inside. We're in front of the Sumaya Museum, and it's actually crazy.
Really fucking big.
Never seen anything like this. It's a big ass building. I wonder if it's shaped like that on the inside too. Like, there's some parts that are like bent.
And in fact, I don't know if you want to point over there, but there's like food and looks like
Farmer's market, I think.
Yeah, farmer's market. Maybe we can grab something from there.
After that, we had a $5 meal. Then we went to Costco because I wanted some croissant.
As she sifts, she finally finds the one that she wants. And successfully, she has found it. The prettiest box of them all.
On Tuesday, we left the apartment early to leave for Koyokan because we booked a photo shoot with a photographer named Christian. Because if my vacation photos fell into my own hands or Josh's hands, we were basically screwed. I had a feeling that Koyokan would be my favorite day, and I was right. After the photo shoot, Christian dropped us off at this really lovely cafe where I had the most enchanting matcha latte, and I usually never use the word enchanting, but I think in this case it's appropriate, both in appearance and taste. It was truly enchanting. Then we found ourselves just walking around and taking in the beauty and the color of the village. We're in Koyokan today, and so far it's my favorite place. We found ourselves at the Mercado de Artesanías, the artisan market, the art market for handmade arts and crafts, and it really awoke the little girl in me who loved doing arts and crafts. It was super colorful and truly everything I imagined it to be. We're sitting outside because my feet hurt so bad, and because I decided to wear boots instead of comfortable walking shoes because we had a photo shoot this morning and I really wanted to look cute. Is that SpongeBob?
This is SpongeBob.
But yeah, this was my favorite part of the vacation so far. I really loved it, and we got some souvenirs for like $2 a piece.
You want to show your bracelets? Las pulseras.
Las pulseras. What was it?
Pulsera?
Pulsera? Yes, one for me y uno por mi hermana.
Yeah.
After this, we went to Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera's studio, which was really cool and interesting, way underrated compared to Frida's house, and because of that, cheaper and less crowded. Frida and Diego Studios were two separate buildings connected with a sky bridge for when they wanted to hang out. I just thought that was the coolest thing and perfect for two creatives who valued their individuality. Seeing the space really awoke something in me and kind of helped me form my own artistic desires, especially after I saw the big-ass windows. I mean, even if you're not an artist, come on. After that, we got sushi. Yep, more Asian food, and it seemed to be a pretty high-end restaurant, so the bill was pretty similar to when you get sushi in the States, but slightly cheaper. I got a whole-ass plate of sashimi, which I would have never done back home because expensive as hell. It was really good sushi. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next day, we went to San Juan Teotihuacan, the place with the pyramids. I learned about the history of this place in my Mesoamerican art class, my last quarter of college, and it was really cool just to see these really, really old structures that have held up over time, that were man-made, but so clean, so well thought out. It's my engineering brain flaring up, but yeah, super fucking cool. It was unfortunately this day that I started getting really sick. So I brought a filtered water bottle for like camping and drinking lake water and shit, thinking it would be sufficient to kill the little creepers in the water, but it wasn't. And I realized it too little too late, like the last day of my trip, that I was poisoning myself. How did that happen, you may ask? I don't know. I was in denial. I blamed it on the spicy chicken we had the night before. Everyone knows you're supposed to drink bottled water, but I didn't want to contribute to the plastic waste of the world. But now I realize that's stupid, and I'll just contribute to the plastic waste of the world next time. So because I realized too late, for the rest of the vacation, I would continue to drink the same water and continue to have explosive diarrhea. Still, I wasn't gonna let a little traveler's diarrhea, some Montezuma's revenge, which, by the way, is actually a name of a ride in Knott's Berry Farm. I can't believe they named a ride after diarrhea. But I wasn't gonna let that ruin my vacation. So we still went to Teotihuacan. We still had a good time. For lunch, we went to this restaurant called La Gruta, and the entire basis of its appeal was that it was in a cave. It was over an hour ride to get back to our apartment, and it took a lot of Pepto-Bismol and looking out the window trying to focus on other things in order to not shit my pants. And our Uber driver was so nice and talkative, but I was just like not feeling it. But I really didn't know how to say, I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm trying not to shit my pants. Honestly, I don't even know if I could have said that in English. On Thursday, I turned 24, but unfortunately, I got a fever and couldn't do shit, even film anything for this video. I was dead on Thursday. There were a lot of things I had wanted to do, but ultimately, it was the better choice to stay inside and get some rest. Josh and I stayed in and watched a movie and got some takeout. It was fun. We made the most of it. Yep, I had a diarrhea birthday. On Friday, I was feeling much better fever-wise, but my bowels were still killing me. Everyone watching this video is like, we didn't ask for this diarrhea journal, but it doesn't matter. You're getting it anyway. But yeah, Friday. I wasn't gonna miss my reservation at Madre Cafe. Food was amazing. At this point, over a month later, it's pretty much the only restaurant that we ate at in Mexico City that I still think about. It was so good. After this, Josh and I went to the Bosque de Chapultepec, where there are a few different things to do. So, if I'm correct, bosque in Spanish means forest, and it was literally a forest. The forest of Chapultepec. The main 3 things to do in the bosque are the Chapultepec Castle, the National Museum of Anthropology, and the zoo. I didn't want to miss the zoo because, get this, while the zoo in California costs like $40 a person, this zoo was free. And I wasn't going to miss a free zoo, especially because I hadn't been to a zoo in a really long time. And the thing is, I don't even like animals that much. But for some reason, I just really had to go to the zoo because it was free. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to go to the castle or the museum since we lost an entire day from me being sick, but I figured there's always next time. The zoo was super cool, but I wish I was able to enjoy it more. I was not feeling well, but I tried my best to be in the moment because I knew that it was pretty much our last full day there. After we left the zoo, we headed over to the boat rentals. And originally I wanted to do this on my birthday, but I don't know how to swim, and if I was going to risk my life and possibly drown if things went wrong, I was going to definitely do it the day after my birthday. Dying on my birthday like Shakespeare was a little too poetic for me. Being on that boat was really fun. So fun that my stomach actually stopped hurting for that one singular blissful hour. Maybe it was the adrenaline or the comforting buoyancy of the water, but all my nausea and pain just went away. It took a break to let me enjoy this, and I am grateful. Once I took those oars, my dragon boat instincts came in and I immediately started trying to row as fast as possible. This was my favorite activity of the entire week, which is funny because this wasn't an experience unique to Mexico itself. Like, you could totally do boat rentals in California, but for one, a lot of places you can do this in California are usually super cold, like San Francisco or Monterey, and for another, they're more expensive. Renting this boat for an hour cost us about $10 total, so that was friggin' awesome. Fucking dragonfly keeps harassing us! Later in the evening, we made our way to Blanco Colima, a fancy restaurant in Polanco. Service was top tier. This was the first time I'd ever had anyone pull out a chair for me at a restaurant and take off my coat for me. It was kind of weird, but also fun to experience. We even had our own candle. Food portions, unfortunately, were small and not super tasty, but maybe it's just my plebeian palate not being up to par with the fanciness. Is it plebeian? 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 I had a raw beef patty for dinner, but you know what? It was Wagyu and it was only $20, so that's worth celebrating. On the last day, we had to check out of our Airbnb at 10 a.m., but our flight wasn't until 5 p.m. in the evening, so we decided to kill some time at the Biblioteca Vasconcelos, a really cool library, before heading out to the airport. Unfortunately, all we had energy for was collapsing on a very soft couch and staying there, occasionally getting up to empty our bowels. Yep, Josh was getting sick too. And that was our last stop before the airport, before our flight home. Being on that plane, I felt pretty relieved, and knowing that I would be back in my apartment at the end of the night made me feel better instantly. It was unfortunate that we got sick, but it's just a lesson learned for next time. I think the fact that I do want to go back someday despite getting explosive diarrhea means that it was a pretty awesome place. Most people we met there were so warm and understanding and patient, including airport security, which was just beyond me because TSA in the States is a whole different story. Also, as I mentioned before, I am not returning to Mexico City without learning more Spanish first because it was a struggle all week for this girl who took French in high school. I mean, it's one thing to know how to order, but it's another to understand what people are saying back to you after you order. That's one thing that I was not prepared for, but now I know I will be better prepared next time. When I was younger, I had this friend from Mexico whose neighbor was a Chinese woman who spoke fluent Spanish, and I've always remembered thinking that she was super cool and I wanted to be like her. So I guess now's the time. Coming back to the Bay, I felt that I had gained a new zest for life. In the weeks before my trip, I spent a lot of time researching things to do in Mexico, museums to visit, restaurants to eat at, cool things to see. There was beauty everywhere in Mexico, and honestly, there's beauty in the Bay Area too. I think I was just sick of being at home after working so much and being stuck in the same old routine. This trip was exactly what I needed. It was not relaxing, no, because we were busy running around doing a bunch of things and crapping like 10 times a day starting Wednesday, but it was change of scenery that I desperately craved. If anything, this trip solidified for me that you need to do things when you're young, because I just know that if I were 65 doing this shit and getting sick, I wouldn't have survived, at least not mentally. This was my first trip where I planned everything and we didn't get arrested, we didn't die, and we didn't lose anything. And most importantly, we had fun. Overall, a success.